If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard in Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Good evening, everybody. Here is your Tuesday edition of the Pro Wrestle Zone podcast. However, we're doing the Tuesday edition on Monday this week. We're talking Ring of Honor and New Japan, and there's a bunch of other stuff that I'd like to get to as well in the next hour. So, this is Rick Del Santo, and of course, as always, the DVD Freak and Dan the Beast. What's going on, gentlemen?
Hey, how are you?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good, buddy. How about you?
We're doing great. We're doing great. I'm fantastic.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
No calling anybody out just yet. So,
Dantastic. Okay.
Fantastic. There you go. So, WWE today, I read that Tony Chimmel was let go after something like 35 years or something like that. He'd been working with the WWF since 1983 because he was friends with Gorilla Monsoon's family. He had like family ties to Gorilla Monsoon. So he was just let go. Apparently what I heard, there was another gentleman that let go, is that, and they were all due to the live department because they're not running live events, they're not running house shows and all that business. So, you know, it's all that kind of crap that's going on. There's no need for them at this present moment for the business, because it does not look, even in 2021 coming up, that's not here, they're going to be running live events that are basically just going to be a television company, which they already are, but they're becoming even more of a television company, and you don't even need to go to the arena to buy merchandise. You can just buy that all online. So what's the purpose of running even house shows, you know?
Or if you want merchandise, you can go to the Hebner's parking lot stand. But anyway, it's time for a little rant already.
Go for that rant. I'm going to step away for 2 seconds and fix my recorder. So, keep going.
So, you have an employee that's been there for 35 fucking years.
Yeah,
and you can't you can't find something else for him to do.
You got a
point.
point.
It's ridiculous. Like, they obviously don't give a shit. They want to save money in their most profitable year of all time. Makes sense.
Right.
Fuck you guys. Like, fuck. I just, whatever. They're idiots.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You can't take some of your blood money and give it to Tony Chimmel. Like, fuck me.
Right, I get what you're saying there. It's just a little bit ridiculous. I'm having a hard time because my phone keeps shutting off and I'm trying to record everything. So I'm trying to remember where to go to turn it on so it doesn't fade out. I just fixed it yesterday. So keep on talking.
Dan, what you got about Tony Chimmel?
Yes, please.
You know what? The thing about Tony Chimmel, first of all, I mean, if they're not utilizing anybody, what's the sense of paying them? I think eventually they're going to rehire him back anyway. I mean, they've been doing it for the past couple of superstars, like who they rehire, Drake Maverick, which, I mean, I could definitely understand that after the warm video that he posted on Instagram. But the thing with Tony Chimmel is why I'm so pissed. That was the voice of my childhood. No offense to Howard Finkel, but, growing up, SmackDown days, 2002, 2003, that was my voice. So whenever I heard, especially when it came to Edge, superstar, and his voice cracked,
yeah,
he was arguably like my top. Like, as much as I would like to put Finkel over, Tony Chimmel's number one in my book. So,
I was never overly, I don't know, like Tony Chimmel did a good job and everything. I just didn't really like the sound of his voice nearly as much as other announcers.
He wasn't that bad. I just really don't remember much of him because he wasn't always at the forefront up. You know what I mean? He wasn't
Yeah.
always right out in the public. So
I've always
he was. Go ahead. He
Oh.
was a good. He did have a good voice and he did pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's sad anytime someone loses their job. But especially during the pandemic, right now, people are losing their jobs left and right. I got a buddy who lives in Jersey who just lost his job today because his plant is warehouse that he works in is getting shut down.
Yeah, and Howard Finkel will always be number one to me. And I always really like Justin Roberts. I don't know about you guys. I thought he was well, come on.
The pedophile?
Justin Roberts
he's good.
He didn't diddle anybody.
Supposedly an underage girl. Supposedly a rumor, but I guess it was a rumor. I don't know. I don't know for a fact, so I can't.
When did you hear that?
You remember during the Speaking Out movement, it came out?
Dude, I don't pay attention to all that garbage.
It's important. You're on a wrestling podcast. It's important to know this stuff.
Yeah, but I get so annoyed by modern society complaining about everything.
That part I understand. It was apparently an underage girl, but where it happened, it was considered legal. So, because it wasn't really that much. So, like that meant, the age difference wasn't really that much at that time period.
Well, I mean, at least they didn't dump somebody in the river.
We'll see about that. Hey, I fixed the camera. Look at that shit. All right. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I just said about dumping people in the river. Anyway, yeah. What's the next topic?
All right, so
you shouldn't do that.
it's not good. Where are my glasses? Because I can't read. That's why I can't see my computer. Jesus Christ. Here we go. Tomorrow night, New England Northeast Wrestling. It's a promotion based out of New York that runs shows probably 10 minutes from me. Starts their new television series on the High Spots Network. Dan and I are going to start reviewing the shows. It's basically one of the promotions that Dan and I, before we met each other, actually frequented, because they're pretty much the number one promotion that runs the, New York, Connecticut, and I don't know if they run Mass. I'm pretty sure they do. They've done shows in Pennsylvania as well. Do they do it?
Some Massachusetts, some Pennsylvania, PA areas, and Ohio. So.
And some of if you name any big time professional wrestlers, they've run through there at some point or another, and since in their existence. And speaking of which, this is the 2-year anniversary, if I remember correctly, of the match where Kenny Omega wrestled Ray Phoenix in the main event on one of the Northeast Wrestling show in the Mid-Hudson Civic Center 2 years ago. And I watched that live on the High Spots Network, and it was a phenomenal match. So it was really good. That was good. So anybody got a chance to go check that out on the High Spots Network, I highly recommend it.
Well, I know my buddy Nick Kurtz attended that show, so if you're watching this, leave your comments, share your memories of that night.
Oh, lucky him, shit.
Yeah, that was the one and only time that Kenny Omega worked for Northeast Wrestling, and they actually printed up T-shirts specifically for that event for Kenny Omega as well, and you can still get them through their website. So yeah. That's pretty much anything outside of what we're normally going to cover.
Well, something. Since we're on the Northeast Wrestling discussion, Rick, what are your first memories of discovering Northeast Wrestling and your first Northeast Wrestling show?
I'm sure it's gonna be way different than yours. Mine is 1995.
So that they were actually when the promotion started, right?
Yeah, they were actually a part of the NWA at the time, called NWA Northeast Wrestling. I don't remember much about the show. I do remember that Tommy Rogers from the Fantastics was on it. One of the regulars, a guy that I remember that it turned out to be a regular for the company, Roughhouse Ralph Mosca, was on the show. Of course, the Guardian of Chaos, the Big Daddy, was on he was associated with Northeast Wrestling for many, many years, and he was one of the best, right hand man, so to speak, and their top managers for many years. Other than that, I don't really remember much until I started to regularly go to shows. One of those shows that I went to after that probably was like 99, 2000. It was Yokozuna, Jake Roberts, Jim Neidhart involved in the main event, and Big Daddy actually managed, I believe, Jake Roberts that evening. So that was also the first time I ever saw Low Key prior to him becoming, I guess somewhat famous. And he wrestled the guy who recently passed was Xavier, who ended up becoming the first ROH champion, a few years down the road. I just remember that was really like watching those two wrestle each other, and then a few years later, they both became pretty big indie stars in their own right.
Well, you know what? You're definitely right when you say your story's different from mine, because I remember things very, very vividly. Like I remember, the show coming up. I was in school and they were handing out these flyers. Finally got to my end of the room, and it's like wrestling in Waterbury, and I'm like, what the fuck? Wrestling? I'm like, okay. Never thought I'd see the day. And I know they advertised, I think it was like Velvet Sky, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Hacksaw was a regular there. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but I posted every now and again I'll repost a picture of me and Hacksaw from a Northeast Wrestling event from Danbury area, the Danbury Police Athletic building. He was one of the nicest people I ever met at a show. Legit.
And I remember it taking place at the Waterbury Pal, which around here that's considered, I don't know, like ECW arena, you would say, probably, Rick.
It's like a regular venue, yeah.
Same as like the Bethany Arena. You got to have a home somewhere, right? So right. I remember going there. Just greetings from, Velvet Sky and Big Daddy V. And I could just remember how, generous and so nice, Viscera was compared to like this big evil monster with the sun and moon on his titties. And I'm just like, wow, you're a really nice fucking guy. Like, what the hell?
Yep.
Made a compliment over the WrestleMania 22 hoodie that I had, and, took a picture with him, which I still have that photo. I'm going to have to dig that out and show you guys, because it's one of those printout photos, and he basically just put his signature on it. And that was actually the first time I encountered, I believe that was Bull Dread's first show for Northeast as well, was my first Northeast show. So
I think that's when we had Bull Dread on, he said that actually. So
yeah,
about that, because I think you knew him, right? Your family knew him. His family.
He was I know he was tag teaming with Jim Duggan that night, and he knows my family because they're practically neighbors. But yeah,
just as you mentioned that, Jim Duggan's coming out on my television. That's pretty fucking weird. He's about to face Steve Austin for the United States title.
Well, we already know how that goes, right? If that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's Fall Brawl. Yep.
Oh, yeah, I don't even want to talk about that.
I heard that was DVD Freak's favorite match of all time.
Just you happen to mention it, it is.
Technical wizardry.
Oh, yeah. 2x4 up the ass, gotta love it. But,
so do you have Go ahead.
I remember Nick Kurtz. I know that's how Dan and I were introduced, because Nick Kurtz actually thought you were me at a Northeast Wrestling show. And then, like, 3 years ago or whatever, he told me, he's like, dude, I just met somebody. I thought it was you. And it turns out it was you. So
that's pretty funny.
Do you remember that interaction with him?
You know what? I remember because I was standing in the Brian Pillman line, and Brian Pillman Jr. to be exact. And this guy just came up to me, and he was just like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Do you know a guy named the DVD Freak?" And I'm just like, it rung a bell. I'm pretty sure I was already subscribed to you at that point, but I wasn't really familiar with YouTube names. So I was like, well, I have to look it up, but it rings a bell. He was like, oh my gosh, dude, you have, like he was just telling me like the facial features, the hair, just, and I kind of saw, but at the same time, I was like, no,
I
no.
didn't see it,
But
but
then this is how we ended up getting in communication with each other. We didn't end up talking, the rest of that night. We ended up taking our seats, watching the rest of the show. But his video came up as a recommended video on YouTube. And it was for the Scorpio Sky giveaway. And I'm sitting there like, huh, I wonder if this guy was at the Northeast Wrestling event. So I left a comment. I was like, hey, not to sound like a creep, but was this at the Northeast Wrestling show in Waterbury? And he was just like, yeah. He was like, how do you know that? And I'm all like, oh, I'm the guy that looks like the DVD freak. He was just like, holy shit. And I ended up just like going through his videos just to make sure. And I'm just like, all right, yeah, this is the guy. And,
Is he
we
is
ended up
he
exchanging.
is he a Connecticut guy? He lives in
No,
Connecticut? No? Okay.
he's from New York. I ain't gonna mention specifically where, but he is from
Yeah.
the New York area.
he's
But,
he's really cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, we ended up exchanging, social media accounts, and then probably like a year later, he was the first person I went up to. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be making a YouTube channel. Check it out. Finally going to be posting videos." And that's when he made the whole story video of our interaction. And that's how me and DVD Freak were finally introduced, along with Wrestling Rampage during the WrestleMania 36 prediction video, because it's just too big for one night, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Relaxing Ghost wasn't able to do it, so I'm like, well, we need a fourth guy. And Nick was like, oh, let's have my friend Dan come on. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And yeah,
well,
the
You know
rest is
what?
rest is history.
One of the things I can't wait for is us to when WrestleMania rolls around next year. Because Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, if they're breaking it up one night, or they're gonna do it like breaking it up into two nights, or doing the 1 6 hour broadcast, and are we all gonna just shit on it?
I'll
So
tell you what, though, I actually thought 36 was the best WrestleMania we had in like 5 years. So I hated fucking 35 with a passion. I know, Rick, you were there, but I hated it.
yeah, but that doesn't mean I liked it.
Okay.
You know.
Well, all right. I went to 34. I'll admit it was the drizzle and shits. And
There's
then
things that I walked away with. I'm glad that I went. Because going to something like that, it's the what do they call it? What's the term? It's
Showcase of the Immortals,
there's that, yes,
the
and then there's
granddaddy of them all.
the granddaddy of them all. That's right. I
where
mean,
it all begins again.
I did like
Not that one,
Brian.
no.
I did like Brian and Kofi. I mean, because it was Brian, and it's not that Kofi's bad or anything. He's not that bad. It's just he gets stuck in goofy gimmicks.
Ugh.
We're totally haven't even started the subject of the show. So,
Well, let me go turn the AC on quick, because it is fucking hot in here. Jesus Christ.
And, just for a little fact of the matter, that whole prediction video for WrestleMania 36,
yep.
that's why I throw up the 4 symbol, because I was the 4th man. So, just a little fun fact there.
So anyways, yeah. So I'm looking forward to talking some professional wrestling. We got about 40 something minutes left of the show.
Right.
One of the things is we haven't done a good 2.5, 3 hour show in a very long time.
No,
I said, I think definitely for maybe
I
for
was gonna
Survivor
say
Series or
that was something me and DVD Freak were definitely good at, which we definitely need to pick up on the 2002 reviews. It's been a while since we've done those, but I
right.
assure you guys we'll be back on that, so no worries.
Okay. Yeah. Now, yeah, that's one thing. And last week you and JJ did a really great episode together as well. So.
Right.
So.
Definitely looking forward to it. All right.
What the hell is going on there? So let's keep talking so there's no weird background noise.
Right.
What do you got going on? You got anything playing in the background over there?
No, I don't have anything at the moment. Everything's pretty much just silent, so that way I have the best, background noise as possible. Just no noise. And
Looks like it's Ricky Gibson and maybe Jimmy Valiant on my television. Maybe a younger Jimmy Valiant. Trying to think, like the Valiant brothers after they left WWF, maybe. They could be. I don't know. Maybe. So what's up, DVD Freak? Which do we want to start with, Ring of Honor or the New Japans?
I actually enjoyed Ring of Honor a little more, so maybe we should do New Japan first.
Okay, I do have a complaint about New Japan. I did like New Japan, but
It was all right.
Dan, you could jump in anytime you want.
Okay.
So, with the New Japan, for the strong, either out of the LA dojo, the only thing that every week that I've noticed so far, especially seeing that we've been really, going through and analyzing them, the main events are not the best match on the show. It's the undercard, and the main event is just kind of like the I'm falling asleep match, or I don't necessarily. The only reason why I'm necessarily watching it is because have to review it, and I could just walk away and just look up the result, but I won't.
I've been doing that. I've been doing that with WWE for years now. But I enjoyed the finish to the main event, but that's about it.
I'm trying to. Yeah, that was good. There's a couple complaints about that gentleman that I have to say, but when we get to that match, that's when I'll mention them. It started off with Fred Rosser, who was Darren Young.
Yeah.
In WWF against Jordan Clearwater. I enjoyed this match. I think, what's he call himself? Mr. No Days Off.
And, 24/7, no days off.
Yeah. This is the second or third time I've seen him in New Japan, and I'm really enjoying his work here as opposed to how it was in WWE. I think he was sorely underutilized, and you can tell definitely by watching his stuff in New Japan.
Now, I'm going to jump in a little bit. Now, Rick, from what you've seen out of him, can you say that he's progressed over the last couple of years since leaving WWE?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got a somewhat of a different moveset as well. He definitely looks like he's putting it. He put it in. He's putting in his time. He's trying harder. He's working harder, and he's just putting on good quality matches.
He does need to shave his head, though. I've thought that for years.
Well,
that afro needs to go. It doesn't work. Just stop.
That's something he's had for close to a decade. So
I know. Well, when he was in NXT the first season.
Oh God.
Oh my God, it was awful. It was like an emo afro. You didn't think that existed, but it did now.
I'm gonna have to go back because it's I don't necessarily even remember the season because and the only reason I really watched it was because Brian was in it, so I don't really remember much. I remember during that. Speaking of the original season of NXT, I remember that who did he get as his coach? Brian. Each wrestler has a coach. Was it The Miz?
No, Brian had The Miz. Did Darren Young?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Who the fuck?
That's what I'm saying.
Darren...
I remember Brian coming out on TV and saying, "I really wish that I had Steven Regal or William Regal, but I got The Miz." He was sorely disappointed.
Who did Darren Young have?
I can't. It's so long ago. I really don't
Christian?
remember.
You know what? I know Justin Gabriel had Matt Hardy. Barrett had Jericho.
Yep.
Miz was with Brian. I'm thinking either MVP or Christian. One of those two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, knowing Vince, he would put the two black people together, so that makes sense.
Well, that's why I was going to get to that. That's why they put Darren Young and Titus together. It's like they had two gentlemen that let's put you two together because
they're the same color. It's such good shit.
Yeah. That's the thing. None of it makes sense. So the second match I really enjoyed too. Danny Limelight. I think he's a phenomenal worker. I've been watching him for a couple of years now with in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the United Wrestling Network, and he just recently popped up in AEW last week and the week before, doing a couple matches from Dark. I think that it's this kid's time, and he's got a bright future, and it shows here. I think this kind of, he took the L here, but I thought this was a really good match.
Real quick, I did watch the press. I guess you want to call it the press interview with Tony Khan today for Full Gear.
Sure.
After we mentioned AEW, I just want to say I love Tony Khan. He's honestly a great human being, and he loves being a promoter. He actually is a fan. I know some people call him a money mark, but
I believe he is a money mark, but that's,
Yeah.
I believe he is. Were you pointing to me? I have called him a money mark.
No, I wasn't pointing to you.
Oh, all right.
It's just, he is a wrestling fan who has a lot of money. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I had a lot of money, I am a fan, I'd probably do the same thing.
But for all his critics, he just put on one of the best, probably the best pay-per-view of the year. So,
as long as he doesn't get involved in storylines,
yeah,
I'm okay. I'm okay with him.
No.
If he's just like the guy is just like, okay, how much do you need? How much does this cost? That kind of a thing. But the thing is, do you think that some of these guys, and I'm not trying to say that they are, but some of these guys just be like, my friend needs a job. How much you going to pay him kind of a thing.
Well,
he deserves this. He deserves this. And then Tony just be like, are you sure? Like, and then he just writes a check.
You know what? I was going to say, that's the bad thing about booking, which is kind of reminiscent to WCW. Obviously, you had somebody like Kevin Nash who was in charge of bookings, probably like
all he did was put himself over. Like,
right.
And bury everybody. Yeah.
It's basically similar, just how you have the Elite. Who does the Elite remind you of? It's like NWO and DX having kids. But like I said, going back to WCW, you wouldn't expect somebody like Waltman. Well, yeah, I mean, he was a good talent and everything, but how else do you think he would have gotten there? Let me ring up one of my boys. He needs a job.
I think that he didn't spend enough time in WCW showing Waltman. Was he there 2 years at the most?
Probably like a year and a half, because I know he suffered the neck injury, and then by the time like January came along, he basically got the termination papers through FedEx by Bischoff, which is something that he's notorious for. But I have nothing against Bischoff.
Did you ever read his book, The Controversy Creates Cash? It is gigantic of a book. I'm telling you that. It's a really great read, but how much of it is actually true, And the other thing is, I wanted to hear more about his AWA days when I rented. I got that book from the library, however many years ago when it came out. But he doesn't spend enough time talking about the AWA. He talks about growing up, probably like one chapter working with the AWA, and then automatically WCW stuff.
Do either of you have his DVD?
I do.
I do not. I don't. I would personally.
I actually enjoy.
I would never buy that. Yeah, unless I bought it for like $1 or $2. Yeah.
It was a good documentary. It has some good stuff on. Obviously, it's Vince's version, but it gives you a good psychological profile on Eric Bischoff, at least.
I think WWE put out a pretty decent run of good documentary DVDs. I know some of them are going to be altered and a lot of information left out, like the World Class Days. Like, that was a good documentary.
Yeah.
But the more detailed one is the one that wasn't produced by WWE. The AWA was a very good documentary for that DVD, but it doesn't cover enough of the later days of what really sunk the company, So.
Speaking of documentaries, I just watched on the network, WWE Network, yesterday. They just released a Paul Bearer documentary, and basically they just go through his run as Percy Pringle and how he got involved. A lot of world class stuff. And basically he was already managing the Undertaker at one point when he was known as Big Red, under the
World
mask.
Class.
Yeah,
Booger
yeah.
Red.
So,
I remember that. I do.
but you know
I watched.
what? It was
I watched
such
a lot
sad
of.
story, too.
I watched a lot of World Class growing up. It was on every day on my television, basically at 4 o'clock on ESPN. I told you every day when I used to get home, Monday through Friday, I used to rush home, fuck my homework. I had World Class to watch.
Yeah, fuck
So.
the homework.
Exactly.
I
You
actually
see how
can't.
good it did? You see how good it did for me?
Oh yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually canceled my network subscription like a week ago.
Every time I do, there's always something I want to go back and watch. Like the classic. The only reason why I end up keeping it is because of the classic content. Even though, uh, there's always something to find on there, where there's the old Mid Atlantic, the old World Championship Wrestling episodes, the old, they haven't added enough of the WCW Saturday nights, especially like the 1989 era. I think it was still called World Championship Wrestling at the time before it became. There's like a whole gap missing, especially from like 1990 and 91. There's a lot on the network. There's like chunks missing. You know what I mean? It goes from like however many years, then a couple years missing.
Well,
Like the final couple of years of prime time, they didn't digitize those yet. It just goes up to like I think 1990, and what did it run to 93? So I'm still waiting for the rest of those to get, because when it became more of a variety show, and then with some matches in the middle.
Well, they like to create their own continuity, so.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the Danny Limelight and Chase Owens match? I thought it was pretty decent.
I think it was the better match of the show.
Yes.
I'd rather have
Absolutely.
this gone on last. I'm not a fan of tag team main events personally.
It depends on how the build up. I'm going to complain about the tag team main event when we get to it, though.
Well, I especially hate 6-man tag matches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the most cliche.
The 6-man tag team matches?
Yeah, that's the most cliche fucking Monday Night Raw main event. And it's just, it always ends with
amazing.
some kind of...
It's amazing that you said that, because tonight I got an email from WWE saying that there's a 6-man tag as a main event.
Yeah, like... I'm just...
Yeah.
They always end the same. It's some clusterfuck where all of them are in the ring at the same time. Like, fuck you. Like, I'd rather see a one-on-one competitive matchup for the main event. To me, this should have been that main event. If you're working with these three matches they had, this one should have been the final match. And actually
I think there's a reason why the main event was the main event. Before we get to that, there was Kevin Kelly was talking about the matches that were coming up for next week or coming up. I said Kevin Kelly mentioned Fred Rosser versus Tom Lawler coming up, Filthy Tom, for one of the future episodes of Strong. And didn't it just come out 2 days ago that Tom Lawler has COVID? So how the fuck is that going to happen unless it's pre-taped?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's pre-taped. Has to be.
I'm not sure if you guys heard of that, about Filthy Tom getting COVID or not. But
well, maybe we can have like a face shield on a pole match or something.
And that's the other thing, is that Brian Alvarez, has a show with Filthy Tom as well, and didn't even mention on the show today. So I don't know. Unless he got the Donald Trump vaccination that worked within, like, he got it and it was gone in 2 days. But,
Yeah, well.
All right, so the main event was Rocky Romero and Jeff Cobb against Rust Taylor and JR Kratos. God, I love Jeff Cobb. I really do. That guy's amazing. I just love his variations on the suplex. It's kind of like, it reminds me of watching the Steiner brothers, who would just do 100 different variations on the suplex. They would take a belly to back suplex and do it some fucking crazy way where it looked like a shoot. He does something, like the swinging belly to back suplex. I think he's one of the best wrestlers out there today, to be honest with you, Jeff Cobb.
Yeah. This, like I said, this match, I wasn't hyped up until the last 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I loved this finish, but it's just the rest of it, I'm just like, well, I kept checking the time. I'm like, great, we have 11 minutes left. Great, we have 6 minutes left.
Right.
It's that generic tag match that I don't like. I don't like TV matches to start off with. But this was just like that generic tag team TV match.
One of the things is this Jared Kratos guy was the bigger gentleman of the two. He reminded me of like Albert or Kali, the way he moved. He was not very. This is the first time I've ever seen him.
Yeah, same. I kind of liked him though, to be honest.
All right, I did not. That's just my personal opinion. I thought he was. There's just something about him that did not stick with me watching.
Was he too puffy for you? Too roided?
He had flabs. Did you see that? But anyways. But he just reminded me of somebody like Ali or Kali or Albert, like the way he moved, like it just, But then he I think he damn near took like Romero's fucking crushed him basically with that suplex and then damn near killed him. At least. He
definitely had an in-ring presence.
Yeah, I think as the match went on, though, he did. There's just certain maneuvers that just reminded me that. But then, as like the match went on, he, I guess he worked. It looked like he worked a couple different styles in the match, and they weren't all matching well together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't like when Jeff Cobb loses matches.
Dan, did you watch any of these shows we're covering tonight, or are you just kind of here?
I'm kind of just here, for the entertainment. But,
That's fine.
As Rick said, if I want to jump in, talk about a certain individual, I'll do that. Bring up a story or two. So that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Have you watched any of the New Japan Strong episodes?
I have not. You know what? I'm actually looking forward to like the G1 tournament, to be honest, just because of like the certain names that are going to be involved, particularly like Leo Rush and Chris Bay, as this is going to be Chris Bay's first appearance.
The Super J Cup this year.
Super J Cup.
Yes, this year, it's been a couple of years since this has been held, right? The Super J Cup, if I remember correctly. If I remember hearing that recently, it hasn't been held in a few years. So the U.S. participants, I'm really looking forward to seeing them take place in this. I do have the list somewhere. I don't have it here now, but Chris Bay and Leo Rush and a couple other guys I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think TJP and
yes, he was announced and
ACH.
Yep, he was announced as well. Yep. So it just looks like it's going to be a really promising tournament this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, we're going to cover it. DVD Freak, just remember that.
Fuck yeah.
So
I love me some New Japan.
Yeah, same here. So overall, I thought this show, it was a television show. I thought it was pretty decent. There's really nothing to complain about other than what I complained about in the main event. So, I don't mind television matches when it comes to actual wrestling promotions. When it comes to sports entertainment promotions, it's a different story. You get what I'm saying here?
I did want to say this.
Sure, go for it.
Comparing both shows, because New Japan, it's kind of just match after match after match, whereas Ring of Honor, they cut one match, so it's only 2 matches, where New Japan has 3. But for Ring of Honor, there's more story involved in those matches.
They have in between promos that are really intense and help sell those matches.
And I'd rather have that than just useless action. Being a film fan, I only believe action is necessary when needed. And I think Ring of Honor does that really well, where they have these hype packages, they have promos, whereas I feel like New Japan, they're just kind of throwing shit together sometimes.
Yeah, I like how they have the post-match like promo / press conference for like every match. Yeah, they got the wall set up, and I don't know. I I like the match after match thing. It's presented like it's sport, but so is Ring of Honor with the intense promos. So it's like if there could be like a middle ground for the two, you know what I mean?
I agree.
I'd probably really enjoy it because I do enjoy the way both shows are set up. And now, mind you, Ring of Honor recently just started doing this again because the television product for a little while just turned into be like a lot of highlights for a while, and then maybe one exclusive match.
Okay.
So for a while, and then now since they've come back, they did a bunch of TV tapings. So you know, they're trying to rebrand the company basically, and I think they're doing a really great job at rebranding.
Well, I'm actually liking the Power Rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It makes it more competitive, and I don't know. I love the more strong style, realistic nature, whatever you want to call it. But
there's a lot of grappling.
Yeah.
There's a lot more grappling. It's like you're watching older Japanese wrestling, from like the 80s or 90s. It's like there's a lot of grappling with nothing over the top.
And I'm the kind of person, I always thought rope breaks were bullshit. So I do like that.
There's got to be something. I mean, come on. There's got to be something. It's just got to be some sort of rule. You can't just be like...
I get, the middle of the ring, like that's where you should be. But the way I see it is these are both 1 hour shows, which I don't think a wrestling show should ever be 1 hour. I think it should be 2 hours.
I could tell the era that you grew up on, obviously, by you saying that. No offense. It's because when I grew up, every wrestling show was 1 hour. The only show that I looked forward to every week that was 2 hours was the NWA on Saturday nights, NWA World Championship Wrestling 605 on TBS. That was the only show that was 2 hours, and then eventually it became WCW Saturday Night. So, you get what I'm saying? Every show was 1 hour. Oh, and then primetime wrestling on Mondays was 2 hours as well. So
it's just
like every other show was 1 hour.
It's just I don't want to see a 5-minute TV match that ends in a disqualification.
But if you look at it, there was a lot of squash matches, but those squash matches helped get those wrestlers over. Today, it's impossible for wrestlers to get over. It's extremely hard for wrestlers to get over. You got guys coming out here doing a dick flip, guys coming out here with his hands in his pockets.
Oh.
Come on. You get what I'm saying here?
Well,
it's like that's how these guys are getting over. You needed something else. You need guys like Barry Horowitz, Mike Sharp, Mario Mancini, Reno Riggins, helping these guys get over and make them look strong. And,
one thing I will credit WWF in the early to mid 90s. What was Monday Night Raw? Squash matches.
What are squash matches? Yeah.
They would always.
And they had like one main. Yeah, they'd have one.
It would be
feature match. It wasn't a main event. It was a feature match.
It would be a wrestler and a jobber. Pay-per-views was wrestler versus wrestler. It helps get them over and sell the pay-per-view because at the end of the day, pay-per-views were money back then.
Yeah.
So that's what TV was made for. So, and it's just like now it's just, I don't watch wrestling TV. This is the only time I did was to review on here.
Right.
I don't watch.
I think I said last night on the show that I don't watch weekly wrestling. It's it's the big events, and the only weekly wrestling I've been watching is Ring of Honor and New Japan.
Even as a kid, I was like, "Fuck this!" Like a 5-minute match. I don't want that. I want a 30-minute masterpiece, and you only got that on the pay-per-views.
Right. Well, yeah, you can't have those every night. I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't help the wrestlers, It's like if Seth Rollins went out there every week for about 6 months and beat a jobber, he'd get over. People might like him or people hate him, whichever. I mean, I just naturally hate the fucking guy. But
yeah.
He would. But you get what I'm saying? Like if he went out there and wrestled the jobber every week for 6 months, and then built up to a pay-per-view, it would make his match on that pay-per-view, I might want to see that shit. Right now, I don't want to even see the guy on my television.
Well, and it's also society has changed. They want everything now, whereas back then it was a slow build. And like I said, me being a film fan, I love a slow build. You appreciate a slow build. It makes more sense. It's an emotional reaction.
Yes.
If it's built up and waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you get it right there, like I'm not saying TV should ever be, that world title match for the main event. I just prefer some competitive matches at least on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I do want something competitive, not just all squash.
I mean,
I think a mixture of both is good.
I like having world title matches on TV on occasion.
I don't.
On occasion.
It diminishes the title.
I don't. I think you're wrong. Once in a while.
Once in a while, yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying every single week.
I'm saying once or twice.
But if you look at it, like how often did Bruno Sammartino wrestle on television? Very rarely. You know what I mean? Very rarely. And it was a lot of times he'd end up wrestling in a tag match because he's not going to be defending his match against, I can't even think of some 70s jobber right now. Kevin Sullivan was a jobber in WWF in the 70s. That's the only guy I can think of right now. But you get what I'm saying here. He saved all his matches for Philadelphia Spectrum and Madison Square Garden and the Boston Gardens. I forgot where I was going with this, but that's all right. It's not that important. Either way, it's not that important because we got way off fucking track. So, but that's nothing out of the ordinary either.
Well, this show was good and everything, but it's just I think we had a clear winner this week. I think Ring of Honor was the better show.
Right. We haven't even discussed that yet.
Yeah.
But
that was my segue.
Okay. We're gonna get into that. I thought this was the better show as well. With the exception, I have been really getting into Fred Rosser, Darren Young. The Danny Limelight was the best match of the show, and Chase Owens. So they love putting tag team matches, and they love putting the Bullet Club on a fucking TV show. So that's the other thing. All right, so into Ring of Honor. I got to be honest. They started off with the highlights from last week, Gresham versus Tracy Williams, and then the post-match interviews that they didn't show. And it just seemed, I think that it was great they're still selling this, still talking about it, because I thought that was one hell of a fucking match.
Yeah, it brings it importance. Yeah. You can't just gloss over that. You need to admit, that was great, and we're gonna throw it in your face. That was phenomenal.
Yeah. First match was Dak Draper and Brian Johnson, and one of the things I thought was hilarious was that Brian Johnson was cutting a promo during his hype package when he was just talking about the wrestling bug, catching the wrestling bug, which I thought was the way he was making fun of the other wrestlers being addicted to wrestling as a kid. I thought it was comical. Freak, what was the result of this match? I hate to say that, nodded off for about 5 minutes, literally. Woke up and the match was over. And Brody King was on my TV.
Well, can I say right now that Dak Draper is one of the worst names I've ever heard in the history of wrestling?
I'm not gonna lie.
It's relatively ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh no. God, I enjoyed this match. We had a lot of good
it was really From what I did see of it before falling asleep for that 5 minutes, I thought it was a really good match, and it was enjoyable. They really utilized the rope break and the closed fist, breaking the rules type thing. The referee was really on top of it. I thought that was really good. This one looked like it was like a legitimate fight. You know what I mean? Like a legitimate competitive contest, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, this was great. I think I'll tell you what, I love the second match a lot more. Mm-hmm. I was all over that match. But this one, it was good. You had a lot of good heel tactics. Mm-hmm. They were integrating the power rules. They were integrating heel tactics into the power rules. Where he used the closed fist. He's like, what? I get one. Just being that asshole. But
right.
It's good in-ring psychology. For not having a crowd, this was great.
Yeah. I really thought Brody King's promo was really amazing. I think that guy just kills it every time he just walks out and he's out on camera or, whether he's on camera or in the ring. I thought it was funny that he mentioned that he was into punk and hardcore, because it's the second time in the last 3 or 4 weeks in Ring of Honor that one of the competitors came out and said something like that. I don't know. Me being an old school hardcore kid, I thought that was kind of comical in a way.
Yeah.
But Dalton Castle, former Ring of Honor champion, took the L here, and it was a pretty good match actually. I actually thought it was going to go the other way around.
Yeah, I was happy with the finish. This was a brutal match. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, you had great heel and face. You know, it's not just some gray area. It was literally a heel and a fucking face.
Yeah.
You know, going at it. And I'm not the biggest Castle fan, so
No. I think his
not.
mustache is ridiculous.
He reminds me of like Colin Delaney, but
God damn.
yeah, that's an insult right there. That should show
That's just
you
a
I'm
name.
not a fan.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, but yeah, this was great.
Yeah, you know what? I've encountered Dalton Castle a few times as he appeared for Northeast Wrestling, and yeah, definitely a unique individual. But when it comes to his in-ring aspects, you know, technicality wise, he's great. I'm not really big on the gimmick as I used to be. Is he still doing the whole peacock bullshit?
He's got the whole, what's that thing called? His ring gear, like where he comes out. It's like shaped like that, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of person I always kind of root for the heel anyway, but this one I'm just like, dude, fucking step on him. Like, I want this kid out of here. Like, I don't like him. It's like if Brian Kendrick, back when he was teaming with Paul London, fucked
Right.
Colin Delaney. That's kind of what you get. But yeah, I love the finish. It was a brutal finish. I love that. It was
Let me
like
ask you, guy.
Go ahead.
Good. Let me ask you guys, like, what do you think of Brian Kendrick these days as the Brian Kendrick that he started that gimmick in TNA and then came over to 205 Live with it?
Well, he started, because if you remember, when he split with Paul London, he was teamed with, not teamed, but it was kind of like his Virgil, Ezekiel Jackson.
I remember that.
With who? I'm sorry, with who?
Ezekiel Jackson.
Really?
Yeah, he was kind of like his bodyguard. And
okay. That must have been when I stopped watching for a little bit.
I think it was more cringy. I like Brian Kendrick, but I don't like the Brian Kendrick.
I liked him when he was Spanky in the earlier days. It seemed like he doesn't move like he used to. Now there's a lot that he took out of his move arsenal. You know what I mean? It's just he just goes out there like he's a plain old wrestler nowadays. He doesn't do all the. There's nothing crazy about him any longer.
Well, is he still with WWE?
As far as I know, he is. He was part of 205 Live for at least
I remember that
over a year or so. Yeah, over a year or so. I mean,
yeah.
I haven't watched that. I haven't watched that in a while because I'm Friday nights and
I've watched it
really
once. I watched it once because I was there.
There's actually, I actually do enjoy that program because it's a shame that the crowd is never into it, and that's the thing. It's like they don't give enough attention to these guys, so the crowd is never into it because it's recorded before SmackDown or after, whichever. So half the time the crowd isn't even there. Half the crowd will leave.
Well, that's why because it used to be after SmackDown, but people were leaving, so they had to change it to before and take out the live part. But it's just like, at this point, there's no fucking title. What are the people fighting for?
They took the title and brought it to NXT, the Cruiserweight title, so now it's just a show, and the guys don't even pop up. Like, for a while, they did shows from whatever arena. What is it, Full Sail Arena? Is that what it's called? And then
Full Sail University.
Yeah, whatever, that thing. So they would bring it there. It doesn't matter. But anyways, they would bring the show. They would bring the shows there, and then that's it. But there's no title. There's no title to fight for. There's no special tournaments they have. There's nothing. So what's the point? What is the purpose?
Look, I know WWE thinks their audience is retarded, and for the most part, they are. But people like us who watch and actually are wrestling fans, purist wrestling fans, we're sitting here, we're like, okay, what's a wrestler realistically fighting for? to be number one on top the title. In kayfabe, that's where the money is. That's where the fucking autographs are. That's where the pussy is. That's where everything is.
I tell you
So
what,
if you're not, if there's no champion, there's no ladder to climb. You get to the top of the ladder and there's nothing there. So what are you fighting for?
Well, you know what? I mean, when it comes to, the ladder to climb, it kind of brings me back to, like, the early, like, late 2001, 2002 days. I think they're just fighting for a TV spot. I mean, obviously, WWE acquires all these guys, and you have so much talent, you have no room for the main shows. So where
the majority of the reason their roster is so big is because they're trying to get them to not all these big indie guys, so they hire these guys so they don't sign to other companies because they don't want their companies to get bigger. They might not even have a spot for Brian Kendrick, or Tony Nese is still wrestling there every now and again. It's like, but they don't have any. They don't want them to go to, say, Impact or AEW or New Japan because, I mean, Vince McMahon is convinced that he lives in this box. He's probably convinced that nobody watches New Japan because it's not in the United States of America anyways.
Well, it's like a few years ago when everyone was kind of transitioning from TNA to WWE, they throw him an Impact because his way of thinking is you haven't made it unless you've made it in WWE. No promotion matters. And these Cruiserweight Cups, the what was it, the Mae Young Classic, that was their way of diminishing these people and telling them, hey, you have to work for your spot when they already made it.
I mean, how many female wrestlers wrestled in the Mae Young Classic and then signed with another company? They had 2 matches. I mean, they had, Ibushi from New Japan come in, and he made it pretty far.
He did.
Into the tournament, and then he never signed with WWE. And if there's anybody, that guy's fucking amazing. He should have signed with I mean, granted, I'm saying they should have signed him rather than if he decided to go back to New Japan. You know what I mean? Because he'd probably get the fucking, what's his name? The other guy, the guy that's the New Japan legend that's in there now. That's the team that was Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, he probably would have gotten that treatment. Got stuck with a stupid gimmick, stupid hair, stupid outfit, and then you're wrestling matches half the speed that you were before, and you probably do 2 or 3 moves out of your entire arsenal. So it's just a bunch of bullshit that what they do. And then the same thing with, like, what's her name? Mercedes Martinez. She's been wrestling. How long has she been wrestling, Dan? 18 years? 20 years? Probably around there. She started here in Connecticut, and she wrestled in the Mae Young Classic, and then she makes 1 AEW appearance on AEW Dark. 2 months later, she's in WWE on NXT.
Well, it's just like, I'll tell you what.
She deserves her spot. She deserves her spot, working her ass off as long as she has.
Well, you know what? Good for her, because she requested to be taken out of the Retribution storyline, which is probably, in history, one of the dumbest storylines we've ever seen.
That's Donnie's favorite.
Good for her. It's whose favorite?
Donnie's.
Well, he also likes Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch is a fucking trash heap. Fuck Becky Lynch. The only reason she's over is because Nia Fats punched her in the face.
All right. So, I get what you're saying. I would not want anybody that I like to go to the main roster and get this shit treatment. Keith Lee is, like, up there for me.
I'm scared.
I'm scared
times. For him.
And the shit that they do, I'm predicting by the time New Year rolls around and WrestleMania season comes, that it's going to be different for him. At least I'm praying that that's what happens. I'm convinced that something is going to happen and it's going to change.
He's money, but they already fucked him.
He could print money with this fucking guy, but Vince is he's just old and senile. I don't know what the fuck he's seeing.
fucking Alzheimer's disease is what that is. But it's just like with Keith Lee, he could shit in a plastic bag and sell it. Like that's how great he is.
That's how great he is. He really is.
And
And he
it's
could
just
be
like-
their next. He could be their next superstar. Their next Cena. Their next Hogan. Their next Brock. Their next Hitman. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the
they
guy
already-
has that amount of talent. Okay.
And they already fucked him with that awful theme music. They changed
They changed his outfit.
Yeah,
His
they
ring
changed
gear.
his ring gear, and it's just like that to me was like, all right, that's it then. We see where you're going with this. Like
that was on the first month.
Like, does Vince McMahon did he develop Down syndrome with age? Because obviously, look at last year's Survivor Series. He was fucking over.
As if
he
exactly.
had a great performance.
The pop he got when he appeared, okay, the first time.
Yeah.
That should tell you people know him, people like him. Do not change him. Just go with it and put him with somebody. Put him with fucking Brock. When those two went on it in the Rumble,
Oh man,
I legitimately marked out because I was like,
yeah,
I need to see this. I said, and then the fact is, the Keith Lee got that look on his face, that smirk on his face. I said, oh my God. I started to mark out. I really did. I said, this is going to be awesome. And they put him in there for a couple minutes with each other. I just wish it, I legit wish it went longer. Like, and I wanted to see them, go at Mania too, but that didn't happen. Maybe next year. We'll see.
No, that won't happen. But I'll tell you what. I would suck Vince McMahon's dick if I got to see if I got to see Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar in like a 30-minute match. Dude, that's
I don't think you're going to see a 30-minute match with Brock Lesnar anytime soon.
I'd even swallow for that one.
Dan's interested in putting in on that. The look on his face.
That should show you how much I want to see that match.
I think that it would be a fantastic match. Like, seriously. There's so much that I want to see. I don't even know how we got on this subject, to be honest with you. But
anyway, Ring of Honor.
Oh yeah, it was good. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good, and I can't wait for future episodes next Tuesday night or whatever night we cover it.
Next Tuesday, I'll be good. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm about ready to wrap the shit up. So, folks, DVD Freak, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Oh, by the way, before we say goodbye, JJ was supposed to be here. His pops had to run out. This family emergency. I want to just say that we are thinking about JJ and his family and hope everything's all right. Cheers, buddy. Praying for you and your family. Before we go, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your DVD Freak?
The DVD Freak on YouTube, as always. The Wrestling DVD Room on Facebook. It's growing in numbers. We're almost at 600 people, and that's awesome. I started that channel to kind of reignite the wrestling DVD community, and Dan knows the last person kind of fucked that one over. So, I'm trying to reignite that community, and, we're doing good stuff on that page, and that's really about it. Anything else, I'm not too active on, so it's not really worth mentioning.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, the Rick Del Santo, and you can find me on the YouTube, or us, I should say, the Pro Wrestle Zone podcast. Like, subscribe, share, and leave nasty comments. It doesn't matter. Dan, why don't you say?
And of course, you can find me on all forms of social media now: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. But of course, you can find me on YouTube at Dan the Beast 94. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. And especially if you're going to be watching my channel and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that button. And of course, subscribe to the Pro Wrestle Zone podcast. Y'all have a great night.